A 17-year-old boy who went missing for a week found on a hill in Siulik-yun this afternoon. Phase 2 of the time-varying toll scheme for 3 cross-harbour tunnels set to be launched on December 10th. And Cathay Pacific to repay 50% of the government's COVID rescue package at the end of this year. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The second phase of the time-varying toll plan for the city's 3 cross-harbour tunnels is set to be launched on December 10th. The Transport Department made the announcement today. Mimo Sengai has details.
In August, the Transport Department launched the first phase of the time-varying toll plan, or the 633 scheme. Under 633, the toll for private cars passing through the Western Harbour Tunnel became $60, while the cost of using the Cross-Harbour Tunnel and the Eastern Harbour Crossing was adjusted to $30. While the purpose of the plan is to divert and regulate traffic over peak hours at the 3 road harbour crossings, some drivers said the new system has not made much of a difference. This taxi driver said the traffic situation remains pretty much the same. You still get traffic jams at the 3 road harbour crossings, he added. Starting from December 10th, drivers must adapt to a new system when the second stage of the time-varying toll scheme, also known as the 644 plan, is implemented. Under this phase, drivers will be charged multiple toll fees depending on what time they use the tunnels. For instance, private vehicles that use the Western Harbour Tunnel during rush hour must pay $60, unchanged from the first stage. However, the fee for the Eastern Harbour Tunnel and Cross Harbour Tunnel will be raised to $40, a $10 increase on the current fare. During regular hours, a flat rate of $30 will be imposed on private cars at the 3 tunnels. For off-peak hours, $20 will be asked from drivers who use the 3 crossings. A transitional toll arrangement will also be introduced between time periods, with the toll fees adjusted by $2 per 2 minutes. Taxi and commercial drivers, meanwhile, must pay a fixed fee of $25 and $50 at each tunnel, respectively. Lawmaker Ben Chan said the new arrangements are designed for people who have a flexible schedule. It is tricky to talk about the plan's effectiveness when the capacity of the 3 tunnels almost reaches the maximum, he said. Chan said the transport authorities can improve road planning near the entrances of the road harbour crossings to enhance traffic flow. Memos 9, TVB News.
A 17-year-old boy who had gone missing for a week was found this afternoon on a hill at Siulik-yun in Sha Tin, alive and conscious. This after continuous search and rescue efforts by disciplinary forces and civilians amid a typhoon and heavy rain that pounded the city. The boy's mother called the reunion with her son a miracle.
A government flying service helicopter picked up the boy, Matthew Zhang, at around 3 p.m. today. The location, on a hill at Siulik-yun in Sha Tin, near Hang Seng University. He was taken to Pamliu Nethersol Eastern Hospital without the necessity of any medical equipment except for a blanket to keep him warm. The hospital said he's in stable condition. Firefighters searching for the 17-year-old spotted him near Lo Shu Tin Hang in Siulik-yun at around 2:15 p.m. today. He was conscious at the time and was immediately given energy-boosting drinks and clothes.
When the fire department, the personnel first reached the subject teenagers, he is able to confirm his identity with us. And afterward, our crew member rendered ambulance to him on spot right away. For a reason that why he did not put on his clothes or whether he is dehydrated, we have to further inquire the subject teenager.
It's believed the boy's school uniform was soaked because of the rain and he felt cold, so he took his clothes off. Matthew also reportedly said he stopped at the bush because there was water. Rescuers added that they went to Matthew's home to get his clothes to help search dogs locate the teenager. Drones have also been deployed and over 10,000 pictures were taken. Using artificial intelligence, the police analyzed the pictures to narrow down their search area. As to why the teenager went missing, officers say their investigation will continue, but so far there's nothing suspicious. Matthew's mother, who has been asking for help online over the past week, confirmed on social media this afternoon that her son was found alive. She and her husband then rushed to the hospital, and the couple thanked the police, rescuers, the boys' school, parents, alumni, and volunteers for the help. Speaking to the press, she said this incident shows that Hong Kong residents are loving and kind. She said, although it has been 8 days and there were rainstorm and a typhoon, we did not give up and our son is alive. I believe this is a miracle. The 17-year-old is a student of Diocesan Boys School, or DBS. He went missing at around lunchtime on October 4th without taking his phone or backpack. Matthew was last seen exiting the MTR gates of Shek Mun Station before walking down Hang Shin Link near Hang Seng University towards the direction of the Ma On Shan Country Park. Police, rescuers and DBS alumni have been looking for the boy non-stop, even during adverse weather conditions. The boy's mother earlier noted Matthew was worried about taking the university entrance exam next year and had been suffering from insomnia and stomach ache. In a notice, DBS wrote that school teachers and clinical psychologists will be available to provide support to those in need. It has asked the community to allow space and time for the boy's family and refrain from making speculations.
Cathay Pacific shareholders voted to repay 50% of the government's COVID rescue package at the end of this year, with remaining repayments to be made by the end of July next year. In an effort to financially support Cathay Pacific during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government acquired $19.5 billion worth of the airline's preference shares. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The city's flagship airline, which struggled financially during the coronavirus pandemic and having axed thousands of jobs, received a government injection of $19.5 billion in preference shares in June 2020. But the post-pandemic period showed positive signs for the airline, as demand for flights continue on rapid growth as Hong Kong residents can finally satiate their thirst for travel. Cathay has held a number of job fairs beginning in July in the mainland and has shown signs of recovery. In just the first half of this year, the carrier made over $4.2 billion in revenue. Earlier, the airline's board of directors suggested reacquiring 50% of the government's preference shares while reclaiming the other half by the end of July next year. The plan was put into action after a resolution was passed by Cathay shareholders. Cathay Pacific CEO Ronald Lam said the airline's road to recovery is now back on track, adding it's time for Cathay to repay the government for their support during the pandemic. The government previously loaned $7.8 billion to the airline, but Cathay said it has not used any of the money. As of now, the airline has already distributed over $1.8 billion of preference shares to the government. Regarding the government's $19.5 billion injection, the preferred shares carry a deferrable 3% coupon rate for the first 3 years, with the rate going up to 5% in the fourth year and 7% and 9% in the next 2 years, respectively. Some analysts estimated if Cathay completes their reacquisition of the preference shares by next July, the government can make between $2.2 to $3 billion from interest. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A U.S. official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said Washington believes the driver who crashed into the Chinese Consulate in San Francisco on Monday did so with malign intent. The official added the U.S. government has been in contact with Chinese Foreign Ministry officials in the aftermath of the incident. A witness described seeing the car barrel through the main doors at full speed before striking a wall. The witness said the driver was bleeding from his head as he exited the vehicle, yelling about the Chinese Communist Party. The driver was later shot by police and later died in hospital. The San Francisco Police Department said on Tuesday it had no other information about the driver's identity or motive. The department stated it is working and coordinating with investigators from the U.S. State Department and the Chinese Consulate. Palestinians in the sealed-off Gaza Strip are scrambling to find safety as Israeli warplanes hammered multiple neighborhoods in retaliation for the deadly incursion by Hamas fighters. Israel has vowed on even more punishing escalation, calling up 360,000 reservists, and with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant saying, "We will eliminate everything." Hamas fighters continue to hold dozens of captives seized during their shocking attack into Israel over the weekend. Nasvi Karim with more.
We're about 50 people, 50 young Israelis who have been summoned for the war effort, and more even want to volunteer.
Nimrod Nadan is an Israeli medical student based in Lithuania, ready to sacrifice his studies and fight for his country. He is among tens of thousands of overseas-based Israelis who have been called up by their government. Israel has mobilized an unprecedented 360,000 reservists as they prepare for what is expected to be a massive ground offensive into the blockaded Gaza Strip enclave. Israel's war footing is in reaction to Saturday's surprise attack by fighters from Gaza's ruling Hamas party. The fighters infiltrated Israel territory and killed at least 1,200 people, including 155 soldiers. More than 200 targets in Gaza City, where Hamas allegedly launched their attacks, were hit by Israeli airstrikes, along with sites in Khan Yunis and Bureji refugee camp. In a Hebrew rallying call to soldiers, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, "Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. So we understand that Hamas wanted to change the situation. It will change back 180 degrees, and they will regret this moment. They will regret it." This as Hamas fired rockets into the southern Israeli town of Ashkelon, while Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah exchanged fire at Israel's northern border, raising fears of an expansion of the war. Palestinians, meanwhile, are heeding Israeli calls for Gaza residents to evacuate certain areas of the 40-kilometer-long strip. With Gaza's electricity authority saying its sole power plant will run out of fuel by today, residents are desperately seeking safety. Around 180,000 people in Gaza have been made homeless, with thousands seeking refuge in schools and others cowering in the streets. Many thousands are also looking to escape to Egypt via the Rafah border crossing, the only exit from Gaza to the outside world. But now that option is closed after the crossing was hit by airstrikes. Humanitarian groups are pleading for safe corridors to allow medical supplies into Gaza after Israel vowed a complete siege and halted the supply of fuel, food, water and medicines. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
U.S. President Joe Biden has condemned Hamas for its attack on Israel over the weekend, calling it sheer evil while pledging Washington's continued support for Israel. This comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to travel to Israel for talks with the country's leaders. Meanwhile, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has condemned Israel's blockade of Gaza and reiterated his offer to mediate between the two sides. Daniel Rell tells us more.
US President Joe Biden denounced Hamas, calling the surprise attack on Israel launched by Palestinian fighters an act of sheer evil, and detailed Washington's plans to support Israel.
This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. We're surging additional military assistance, including ammunition and interceptors, to replenish Iron Dome. We're going to make sure that Israel does not run out of these critical assets to defend its cities and its citizens.
Biden spoke after his third phone call in 4 days with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The US president said he told Netanyahu Washington's response would be swift, decisive and overwhelming if the US had been attacked this way, but that democracies must also uphold the rule of law in wartime. Biden added American citizens were being held hostage by Hamas and that he had directed his team to share intelligence to help with hostage recovery efforts. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller later revealed U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will arrive in Israel on Thursday to meet with senior Israeli leaders. Miller said Blinken's visit will be a message of solidarity and support, outlining that the Secretary of State wants to hear about the situation directly from the leaders of Israel and how Washington can support them. Meanwhile, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said U.S. intelligence did not pick up signs of the Hamas attack on Israel and has not yet seen any direct link between it and Iran. Elsewhere, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned Israel's blockade of Gaza. He said cutting off electricity and water was a breach of the Palestinians' human rights. Erdogan also criticized U.S. plans to send an aircraft carrier to the region, saying the deployment could lead to massacres. The Turkish leader reiterated his offer to mediate between the sides and said he would continue his efforts to end the war. Erdogan later discussed potential mediation efforts in separate phone calls with United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Dan Orell, TVB News.
Cathay Pacific has announced the cancellation of all flights between Hong Kong and Tel Aviv until October 29th in view of the latest situation in Israel. Elsewhere, another strong earthquake has hit parts of Western Afghanistan. A 6.3 magnitude earthquake was recorded in Herat province days after a quake killed more than 2,000 people. The latest earthquake, about 28 kilometers outside the provincial capital, Herat, triggered a landslide that blocked a major highway. Officials say at least 80 people were injured, but so far no deaths have been reported. It also flattened all 700 homes in Trahak village, which was untouched by the tremors of previous days. Many villagers were already sleeping out in the open or in tents since the earlier earthquakes. Still to come on tonight's news. Damage to an undersea gas pipeline and a telecom cable connecting Finland and Estonia appears to be caused by external activity. Flights suspended at London's Luton Airport after a fire at a car park. And a Chinese-Australian journalist returns to Melbourne after being convicted in China on espionage charges. Welcome back to TVB News. Damage to an undersea gas pipeline and a telecommunications cable connecting Finland and Estonia appears to have been caused by external activity. Finnish and Estonian gas system operators on Sunday said they had noted an unusual drop in pressure in the Baltic Connector pipeline, after which they shut down the gas flow. Today, Estonia's defense minister said the damage was caused by quite a heavy force. Tracy Furness has more.
The Finnish government said Tuesday the damage to the gas pipeline and a telecommunications cable connecting Finland and Estonia under the Baltic Sea may have been a deliberate act. Finland's Prime Minister Petteri Orpo stopped short of calling the pipeline leakage sabotage, saying it could not have been caused by regular operations. And on Wednesday, Estonian Defence Minister Hanno Pevkur said the damage to the Baltic Sea gas pipeline was caused by quite a heavy force. The Baltic Connector link was shut earlier on Sunday on concerns that gas was leaking from a hole in the 77-kilometre pipeline. Finnish operator Gasgrid said it could take months or more to repair the leak. Finland's National Bureau of Investigation is leading an investigation into the leak, which occurred in Finland's economic zone. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said NATO is ready to support its allies. Finland joined the military alliance in April, while Estonia has been a member since 2004.
What was interesting in my mind was also that how quickly NATO responded. And Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said that NATO will give the necessary support, obviously, for both Finland and Estonia in the situation, whether that's information sharing or other help needed. But I think this is also this is an issue that's not only important for Finland and Estonia, but NATO takes protection of critical infrastructure very seriously.
Estonia has also launched an investigation into the malfunction of communications cable connecting it to Finland under the Baltic Sea. Estonia Prime Minister Kaja Kallas has already spoken to Stoltenberg, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and the European Council President Charles Michel. The €300 million pipeline is largely financed by the European Union. It started operations at the beginning of 2020. The incident comes just a year after Nord Stream gas pipelines running between Germany and Russia in the Baltic Sea were damaged by explosions believed to be sabotage. The case remains unsolved. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
All flights at London's Luton Airport have been suspended until 10 o'clock this evening, Hong Kong time, after a fire started in a car in one of the multi-storey car parks. The blaze caused a partial structural collapse of the car park. This video shows the top level of the car park engulfed in orange flames. The newly built parking structure for Terminal 2 partially collapsed after the fire started at around 9 p.m. Tuesday. 5 people, including firefighters and an airline official, were admitted to hospital for smoke inhalation. A Chinese-Australian journalist who was convicted on espionage charges and detained in China for 3 years has returned to Australia. In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry said the authorities deported Cheng Lei today after she served her full sentence. A Beijing court had convicted Cheng of illegally providing state secrets to foreign countries in 2020. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the 48-year-old Cheng has been reunited with her 2 children in Melbourne. She had worked for the International Department of China's state broadcaster, CCTV. Her return comes ahead of Albanese's planned visit to Beijing this year. Australia had been lobbying for the release of Cheng and another Chinese-Australian held in China since 2019, Yang Hengjun. Some electronic retailers in Sham Shui Po were arrested on suspicion of selling illegal set-top boxes. TVB welcomes the Customs and Excise Department's action.
Regarding today's customs action against illicit streaming device, I believe the copyright industry in Hong Kong are very supportive to this action. And for this action, TVB made the complaint and the customs took prompt action.
Customs officers arrived at Ablu Street in Sham Shui Po on Wednesday and inspected at least 9 electronic retail shops. The customs authorities suspect shops in the district helped customers watch pay TV programs illegally by installing certain apps. The amended copyright ordinance was introduced on May 1st to enhance copyright protection. The maximum penalty for those who violate the ordinance is 4 years in prison and a fine of $50,000 for each copyright infringement. It's the news. Thanks for watching.